Happy New Year, my most amazing artists. Today we're going to be making some New Year art, learning how to make a style of lettering with bubbles, or also known as balloon art. I'm going to be using some crayons, a pencil, and a Sharpie. So I'm going to start out with my pencil and sketching light till I get it right. But the first thing I always do is write my name and class code on my paper and then flip it on over, or I can work with it at the bottom. I'm going to write the new year, so 2021 for 2021. Now notice I'm sketching lightly and I'm writing out my letters very spaced out. I don't want them too close together. I'm using up my whole paper. Then I'm going to wrap a bubble around my letter. This is just like creating bubble letters where you circle the inside and the outside. It's like circling, but you are curving everything very close to the number without actually touching it. So you are wrapping a bubble around it without actually touching that number or without creating any straight lines. They're all curvy. Now that I bubbled all of my numbers, I'm going to trace the outside only with Sharpie. Only the outside, not the inside numbers. After I'm all done tracing every number slowly and only doing the outside, and in this case the 0, the inside, then I can erase the original numbers on the inside. By tracing the outside, this helps me because then I can just erase without having to worry about erasing a certain part. I can just make that safety zone of my letter L and just go crazy erasing. After all of my original numbers are erased, I can dust off my pencil shavings or my eraser shavings, and now I'm ready to talk about how to make these look like 3D Mylar balloons. Those are those shiny balloons that you see a lot of big letters or numbers, especially on special occasions, birthdays, New Year, things like that. So I'm going to be making 3 little short lines wherever the balloon would pucker or curve. This is where the balloon will look 3D. By making these 3 little line groupings everywhere that the balloon would curve, that's going to make it look more poofy and more realistic, like it's 3D and popping out. I'm putting these little lines separated. Notice I'm just doing groups of 3 short little lines. I also switched my Sharpie to the fine point Sharpie. That way it's not big thick lines, because realistically these lines are very thin and they definitely happen on these balloons wherever they turn to make that number. That's going to make it pucker in that area where it starts to curve in towards itself. That's where there would be a little bit of that shadow of that curving. So I do those little lines to make it look like it's 3D. I don't want to do too many, but I do just enough that I think that looks right. Then I make this little wavy line on the bottom to show where the balloon is knotted, and I add the line to show the balloon string. Now we're going to talk about shading. I'm going to create value using my pencil first. I'm going to create some shading on the outside or close to the outside of the 2. Now notice how I'm pressing pretty hard to get this effect. The harder I press with my pencil, the darker the value. Value is how light or dark a color is. You could have about 20 different values just with pencil. Notice how as I spread it with my finger, it's getting lighter and lighter as it goes towards the middle. That's going to make it look like it's 3D because it looks like it has a shadow on it. And that inside of it there looks more like the highlight. So you're creating highlights and shadows and value just using pencil. Now if I want to use crayon, I can. You can make these colored. So if I want to do colors for my balloons, all I have to do is press lighter or press harder with more pressure. The more pressure I apply to my crayon or my pencil or whatever supply I'm using, the darker the value will be. The darkest value should always go at the outsides of the letters or numbers. So I could do this effect with anything. I could make balloon letters, I could spell out a name, anything I want. But I'm going to press the hardest around the outside of the number to show the darkest value. As I move towards the center of the number, that's where it's the lightest. So that's going to be the lightest value where I apply the least pressure to my crayon or a tool. That's going to be where the highlight is, always near that middle there, where the shiniest part of the balloon would be. I can do this with any colors or color groupings. So say if I use this red or this dark raspberry color, I'm going to press hard or apply pressure on the outside of that 0, always still on the inside of the balloon, but closest to my Sharpie outline. And I'm also going to do it to that center. Anywhere that there's a Sharpie line is where I'm going to apply the most pressure. Then it gets lighter and lighter as I move towards the center of the balloon where there would be the highlight, almost to where I'm barely pressing at all as I get towards the center. I might even want to leave parts of it white to show that highlight where it's the shiniest. This is going to give it that balloon-like texture that it has that highlight and shadow on it. You can apply this technique of using values to anything. Out of just one color, you can create many different colors or shades. That's called the value, how light or dark it is. So if I press very lightly with this red, it's going to look pink. Yes, I could also just use pink if I want to. You could use a combination of colors. So say if you want to do a blue balloon, I could use the indigo on the outside and then use a light blue towards the inside. Or I could just use one crayon and apply the different pressures. I can use the same technique with any color, but I'm using crayons. I'm not using markers. If I were to use markers, markers just have pretty much one value. It's very hard to get different lighter values out of a marker because markers are usually one dark solid color. It doesn't matter how hard you press or how much pressure you apply, it's probably going to create that same value. So that's why I'm using crayons, because it shows a difference in value with the pressure I apply. I could do this all with graphite just using pencil as well. You can use this technique with any drawing to make it look more realistic. Now in the background, I'm going to include some fireworks by making these bursts of different colors, leaving a space in the center, and just making these curvy lines that go around. I'm going to use 2 colors on each firework to make that burst of light in the sky. It is up to you what you do in your background. This is just a simple way to create a background making fireworks to fill all of your white space. I want to fill most of my paper today with some color to make this look the best I can. All right, my amazing artists, Happy New Year. I cannot wait to see what you create. Have fun.